My role as a state representative is to serve the people. And I believe that although we are excited about the potential merger, because that has to still go through a process, we want to make sure that it is done with the best intentions of the residents that need those services, have depended on those services, and not necessarily for the bottom line.
Welcome to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's bi-weekly podcast discussing Western Mass news. My name is Tyler Garnet.
I'm Dennis Hackett.
And we'll be your hosts for today's episode. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking to State Rep Carlos Gonzalez about his thoughts on the recent announcement that Baystate Health is getting set to absorb Springfield's Mercy Medical Center, amongst other things. But before we get to that, Chris Maza is also joining us. So how are you guys doing today?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I thought I'd just crash the recording here. I haven't been on in a little bit, so I thought I'd come on, say hi, and talk with you guys a little bit.
Well, we definitely appreciate it. There's obviously a lot going in. I guess that kind of gets us into what we like to do before the interview, as always, is our top news stories going on in Western Massachusetts. So what's on your guys' mind?
Well, right now for my team, it's really election season, Hampden, Wilbraham, and Longmeadow at this point. Hampden and Wilbraham, they have their town meetings this coming Monday on May 11th. Longmeadow is Tuesday, May 12th. So those are kind of the big, focal points of our coverage at this point that I feel have taken a lot of time. Longmeadow, especially that fiber issue. There's so much information on both sides. All of it's available on thereminder.com. I'm sure if you're a resident in Longmeadow, you've seen the discussions on the forums. But it's definitely been one of those big all-encompassing issues where it seems like everybody has an opinion on it. So It'll be interesting to see what the vote ends up being. And then beyond that, Hampden and Wilbraham, they have their elections the following weekend. So Wilbraham is that Saturday, May 16th, and Hampden is Monday, May 18th. So a lot of busy election season for our East Longmeadow edition. And then that's before we even get into the East Longmeadow and Longmeadow actual elections next month. So lots going on there.
Yeah, with that with that fiber issue, it's interesting because there is a little bit of a roadmap here in Western Massachusetts with other communities doing it. I know that Westfield Gas and Electric has been very successful with their program, and other communities like West Springfield have tapped into them to help with them. Obviously, the Longmeadow project, as proposed, would involve Fiber Spring.
Yes, which is South Hadley's. But the kind of interesting wrinkle here is, unlike some of the other places, they don't own their utility pole, so that's kind of another wrinkle in the cost kind of decision there.
Gotcha. Yeah. And Chris, anything that you had on your mind?
Well, I think that one of the interesting things that happened actually this week was Managing Editor Ryan Fair and I joined other members of the media at Barnes Air National Guard Base in Westfield to go over some of the new policies and procedures regarding the new F-35 jets that they're going to be getting. Nice. They're still very interested in connecting with the community, but these planes have a higher security protocol because of some of the technology that's involved with them. So there are just some extra steps and some extra protections that are being put in place to make sure that inadvertently information doesn't get out there that could put the pilot, the plane, or the mission that they are a part of at risk. So it was interesting to learn a little bit more unclassified stuff about these planes. The first one is supposed to be arriving. Colonel Glass is going to be flying it in himself in early June. And there's going to be somewhere around 20 of these planes that are going to be stationed in Westfield. So it'll be interesting to see how this all comes together. I think later in the summer they're going to do something more public to kind of introduce people to this. But I think the introduction is going to be pretty apparent with the noise from these planes, which is a concern for some. These planes have the capability of being louder. There are things that they are taking into consideration to mitigate some of that. There's going to be a forum where people are going to be able to give feedback as to whether things are too loud where they live. You know, they're going to be gathering a lot of information to figure out how they can keep the noise, you know, as reasonable as possible. Yeah. This is an Air Force base that is kind of nestled really in a residential area. Yeah. There's some industrial too, but there are people who live across the street from this. So it's things that they're taking into consideration. They want to be a good steward for the community as well. And so that's part of the reason why they brought us in. So that was very interesting. The other thing that I wanted to shout out was, and I think you guys made mention of it on the last podcast, was the Springfield Thunderbirds, who continue to be doing well. They won in overtime. We're recording this on Wednesday. They won an overtime game last night. Nice. So unfortunately, we won't know the outcome of Thursday's game, you know, until after this. But honestly, when you consider that this was a team that was not doing all that hot and actually, you know, fired their coach, you know, mid-season, Steve Konowalchuk didn't make it even through the midway part of the season, I don't think. Yeah. To be at this point and to be really toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in this league in Providence is really great, especially after going on the road and winning a series on the road.
Yeah, and I mean, the playoffs didn't start great because I'm pretty sure they lost 8-1 their first game, right? So, I mean, that's a great comeback.
I was going to say, most people I talked to after they lost the first game, especially in minor league hockey, it's best of 3 that first series. So you lose that first game, it doesn't look great. You don't really have any wiggle room, but it seems like they found something working right now. So, yeah, hopefully as the time this comes out, they're moving on. We'll see.
Yeah.
And I did want to shout you guys out for the great job you did on the last episode talking about the issues in South Hadley. I thought that was a really great, really comprehensive look at the issue and really put things in the right perspective for people, not only in terms of what the town is dealing with, but how we've looked at this. And Tyler, how you've been really attacking this from a coverage standpoint. So great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's been a whirlwind to cover. I'm sure it's been a lot for the town itself. And I mean, it kind of leads me into what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, so a few more updates here.
You know, a few more updates that with our publication schedule would probably come out after. But recently, the Appropriations Committee recommended $1.5 million in free cash to be sent to the school department. This would prevent any cuts for the upcoming fiscal year, as well as give them, because the deficit is $1.2 million, so it would cover that, as well as give them $300,000 to strategically plan or make some positions or save some positions that they think are needed. Because, I know the superintendent has said at past meetings how, if these cuts all go in place, it's just her in the administrative office. Yeah. And she can only focus on the day-to-day if that's the case. She can't do any long-term planning. So there's positions that are talked about. Again, this is just a recommendation. Nothing will get set in place until their town meeting on May 13th. And even past that, I know at the select board meeting last night, they were discussing options for another potential tax override vote. This time it would be less than the previous overrides. The last ones were 9 million or 11 million. This one's anywhere from 3 to 4 million. It's still being discussed. It could take place in June. Select board still has to discuss when they're going to set it, or it might take place next year because a lot of the complaints they stated from the community is the community wants to see a plan in place first. They don't want to just see, as the town administrator said it, a Band-Aid for surgery. They want to see how they're planning to save money and do all this. So, as I mentioned last week, and I'll say it again, it's a very fluid situation with a lot of moving parts and, a very tricky kind of map they have ahead of them.
Yeah, and to go off of that, I mean, it's not necessarily my area, it's East Hampton, but I feel like we have to mention their budget situation, which is in a very similar kind of slippery slope as South Hadley, where they're requesting a $6.9 million override because they're facing a deficit of $6.4 million for FY27. And much like South Hadley is, they're looking at, if they don't get that funding, chopping all kind of after-school activities, sports, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we've kind of talked ad nauseum about how important those programs are, but just to see another community not so far from South Hadley too.
Yeah,
dealing with this.
Yeah, exactly. And once Trent told me kind of about, what was being proposed in East Hampton, we kind of were going back and forth about, maybe questions he could ask the mayor there, and just kind of, because South Hadley's going through it, and they have a very comprehensive, kind of list of the impacts it would have if it was approved. So, it kind of does help, because I know when I first went into covering it, there was a lot of numbers, which I'm not great at. So, it was helpful with that. So, it was interesting going with Trent, and, also sad to see like a community like that, and maybe other communities going forward could be going through similar issues.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing now that in a lot of these communities, we've seen there have been concerns about school budgets and that funding model, et cetera. But we're seeing it bleed into the general government as well now in a way that we and perhaps haven't seen before. And perhaps the school budget issues that seem to come up annually were kind of a harbinger for this, and really kind of should have been an indicator for us and for the communities and the state that there's something really wrong here in these funding formulas. And we're seeing that there are some on the state level, some proposals to change some of that, but we're really late in the game for that kind of stuff to be happening.
And then I believe I think one of the things that I was, because I format the State House every day, one of the things I saw in there is that a rural aid package was shut down. I think it was in the House. But it's just, I don't know, it's so tough because it really and you think about it too, we have these are the biggest budget drivers for the most part in most of our communities. Yep. So when they've been having issues for years, you would think somebody would say, hey, maybe we should get ahead of this, but here we are now.
Yeah, I believe at least one of the rural funding measures was something that Representative Boldiga from Southwick had brought forward, and certainly the rural schools issue has been a big concern for a while. Yep. Really, rural communities in a lot of ways are often overlooked, and Western Massachusetts especially has a disproportionate number of those rural communities. So I don't necessarily think that there's a that's a coincidence.
No.
So.
No, definitely not. And it's going to be interesting to see how they cover it. All these 10 municipalities kind of go through it going forward, because just going back to South Hadley real quick. Although the school committee superintendent was appreciative to get this recommendation of $1.5 million, they said this can only really help for this year, and then we got to figure out it again this year. They've been making cuts for years because of funding formulas not really helping them out. Chicopee's in a similar situation with funding getting cut due to formula. So it's a lot of stuff they got to deal with.
Yeah, I just want to know how Agawam does it, because they're always right where they need to be for their school budgets.
Yeah, honestly, people should start looking at them to figure out what they're doing, because they are doing something right for sure. But I think that's enough from us. I say we get into this interview with Carlos Gonzalez.
Yeah, we'll be right back after a few messages.
We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community for over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news. Are you hearing wedding bells? Take a deep breath. Go Local Magazine has your back. Our wedding special section is your one-stop resource to the best in local photographers, caterers, florists, venues, and so much more. Get inspired by the couples who share their special day with us. Then check out the experts who created their perfect event. It's all here and all at your fingertips in Go Local.
All right, and we are back here with our interview with State Rep Carlos Gonzalez. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. And who that reminds me. What a
Awesome.
great name.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you again for taking some time out of your day. We just had a bunch of questions we wanted to ask you, I think starting with something that happened recently, and I'm sure a lot of our readers and people in Western Massachusetts are concerned about, and that's the recent merger announcement between Baystate Health and Mercy Medical Center. And I know in one of the stories that one of our staff writers, Sarah Hainanen, wrote, one of your first responses was, you wanted to meet with the Baystate Health president and CEO to have a meeting to go over any local healthcare services and personnel, implications in the area. And, our first question was, were you able to set that meeting? And, what are your hopes and goals with that meeting?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to report that we do have a meeting with a quick response back from the CEO from Baystate, and our meeting will be this Monday on the 11th coming up. And again, some of the issues that we want to have more clarity on is the important role that Mercy plays in our region, services, and also personnel. And how, if any, when people talk about mergers, what type of impact that may have.
And I guess kind of going into this meeting, like what's your kind of general feeling on the merger before you kind of get this additional information?
Well, we've known for some time now. We met privately with Peter Banco and Baystate regarding the difficulties that the Mercy Hospital was having. We also know that many hospitals across our country are having, and this is directly impacted by the national agenda that our new administration is having, more severe now than ever before. So we've been trying to address those issues with our Department of Public Health and our secretary, as well as the personnel of Baystate. And we've had some private meetings with the Speaker of the House, and I know they had some meetings with the Senate. And we've been trying to make sure that we are in tune to what are the needs of that potential merger, but also more importantly, upon getting the notification, what changes we may potentially see that can adversely affect the services or the personnel at Mercy.
What do you foresee some potential health impacts that this area could see in terms of, the population that already kind of struggles with it?
Well, the birthing center, we know that closing that down at Mercy has had somewhat of an impact on Baystate. The emergency room at Mercy plays a critical role. Sometimes we may have seen in the past bulging of people going to emergency rooms across our hospital systems, and that may have a negative impact. And that's 5 minutes to 20-minute delay on providing medical attention to somebody in an emergency situation can, cost lives.
Yeah. And then I guess one of the things kind of talking about the merger overall, I know one of the things a lot of your colleagues have said is that they're happy that this is happening as opposed to Mercy just shutting down. Do you think this will prevent that from happening in the future, or is that still kind of unclear at this point?
Well, I think mergers are like marriages. You never know.
Yeah.
Many marriages end up in divorce,
Mm-hmm.
And changes need to happen. We all understand that. And that's why it's important that we get answers directly on what they foresee are potential changes or challenges, and how can the state be impactful in trying to assist them through this process. But again, my role as a state representative is to serve the people. And I believe that although we are excited about the potential merger, because that has to still go through a process.
Yes.
We want to make sure that it is done with the best intentions of the residents that need those services, have depended on those services, and not necessarily for the bottom line.
And sticking with the merger announcement, economically, what kind of impact could you see something like this having on the area, specifically with jobs?
Yeah. Well, Mercy as well as Baystate are one of our top employers, and we know that the healthcare industry provides a lot of jobs to our area, as well as its economic engine in so many ways, from birthing centers to medical. The pharmacy there plays a significant role. We have one of our local pharmacies at Mercy right now because they were closing that pharmacy about 3 years ago. We petitioned with one of our local Springfield pharmacy based out of the North End, and they are providing pharmaceutical services there at Mercy Hospital now. We also know that the jobs that potentially could be lost with mergers is real. And that's one of our concerns. And we know that we've heard from our doctors and some of our nursing staff, as well as the individuals that are part of the union at Mercy, which is different as far as the nursing goes to what non-union nurses at Baystate. So they have to, take that up. And we hope that whatever bargaining rights they have at Mercy can continue to remain.
Yeah, and then I guess kind of broadly speaking, obviously a lot of this is still kind of moving parts, but what kind of message would you have for listeners that might be concerned about just potentially losing services or losing people or anything like that going into this?
Well, I believe that government is for the people and by the people. And now it's a prime time to be echoing your sentiments as to what you feel is a need. And if we can attach a cost to it that can be obtained, then we need to work on those efforts. And we will, again, be candid about wants and needs and realities. And realities means being able to be successful financially as a hospital.
Of course, and kind of pivoting a little bit, we also wanted to give you the opportunity if there was any other bills related to maybe healthcare or public health that you're currently working on, currently working on right now.
Well, one of the key things that we're addressing at the state is to soften the impact of the cuts from the federal government. As you know, Massachusetts will be facing some challenges, making sure that everybody is afforded health care. Some people will be dropped from the federal government side of things. So we're trying to make sure that we can pick up where they have shortfalls. And we know that having people able to have access to health care is the best way and the most economic way to keep our communities healthy, but also the general public safe.
And I know, kind of more broadly speaking as well, I know the House just kind of finished its deliberations on the budget. Like, do you mind just giving like a little update on that process and like how that has been to this point? I know obviously the Senate just released theirs yesterday.
Well, the House, again, the governor proposes her budget and the House undertakes it through debate and process. We've been successful in making sure that we can address many of the concerns, whether they're health, education, public safety, housing, and so many other issues here in Massachusetts, where we are number one in education and providing access to higher education at a no cost for individuals. That's a huge impact. That's an investment. That's not an expense. Being able to making sure that we can provide access to pre-K schools, particularly here in the city of Springfield, where kids at 3 years old can go to school. That's a huge savings for working families. Daycare has really had a negative impact on the working families and economics of this city, this state, and this country. And the cost of providing early child care, it's approximately $200-300 a week, which really ends up more than a mortgage for some families. So we're trying to address those concerns. I think that's critical to the workforce of this region.
Great. And then kind of talking locally, obviously you're the honorary chair for the Pancake breakfast coming up in a week. So I guess what are you kind of looking forward to going into that? And is this something that you've gone to in the past?
Oh, I've gone in the past since my days with the mayor's office as a participant before 20 years ago, before my daughters were born, and then now I'm taking my grandson. So what a great blessing. And to be selected as the honorary chair, it's a privilege, an honor, and I'm humbled by that recognition. And we look forward to adding not only to the pancakes, to the syrup, but we're going to add a little bit of salsa feeling to that.
Nice. How are your pancake making skills? Confident?
Getting better. Day by.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that's all the questions we had, but is there anything else you would like to let the listeners know about?
Well, to both of you, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. I want to thank you and continue success here at The Reminder. I think information is power, and the more you can provide access to information and news, and particularly the worthy news that impacts our daily lives, is critical and important to the success of democracy and the success of America in this region. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Dennis and I are back with our interview with State Rep Carlos Gonzalez. Dennis, how do you think that went?
I think we got a lot of good information out of that. I think knowing that there's a meeting with further information coming out on Monday is definitely a good thing, especially when there's a lot of uncertainty with this. We know merger's scheduled to go through like November 1st or something, I want to say.
Yep.
So there's still a lot of time for these issues to get ironed out. So it'll be good to know, it'll be interesting to see what kind of information we get further from this.
Yeah.
And if there's and if we get real clarity of jobs and the future of Mercy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And, reference Sarah's article that's on the Reminder right now, where she kind of does a general overview of the initial announcement. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming out, especially because it doesn't take place until November.
Yep.
But, in that article, I know there was a lot of elected officials who stated in favor of it. Gonzalez wasn't completely against it, but he did mention how he wanted to do his due diligence and meet with Banco, which I think is great, because whether it is going to be good, whether it's going to be bad, there's a lot of questions. Even if you think about it on a smaller scale, say your favorite restaurant gets new management, you're worried about if the recipes are going to stay the same. But now this is a hospital with a lot of wings. There's a lot of different units, a lot of people getting taken care of every single day. So obviously there's going to be people concerned. So hopefully they do get the answers, like you said, they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And it definitely, no matter what, I don't think there shouldn't be a scenario where Mercy closes down because of this. I hope.
I hope.
Because,
knock on wood.
We mentioned it. Sarah quoted, I don't know, I think it was Sarno, maybe Senator Adam Gomez and Senator Jake Oliveira and her story about how they're all happy to see. I know Sarno specifically said that he was happy to see this merger happening because it meant that Mercy was not going to close.
Yeah, I believe Richard Neal was in there as well,
Neal
stating something very similar. Because you don't want to see hospitals closed. So if this does prevent that, that's obviously huge. So it was great to hear all that. I'm sure we'll hear in the future how that meeting went. But it was good to hear other things he was talking about, like you mentioned. We talk on this show a bunch and in our writing about budgets.
Yeah,
and the House and the Senate have a lot of budget priorities they got to get through.
Budget debates are going through. Like I said, I was reading it in the State House News Service this morning yesterday morning, sometime yesterday, that the Senate had finally released their budget, which comes after Healy announced hers back in January, I want to say, or something.
I think somewhere. Usually it's right around there,
and then the House and the Senate kind of come up with their own, and then once theirs are done, then they debate those.
Yeah.
And then try to get the final number.
Yeah. So we tried to talk, some other bills he has with public health in there. I'm sure that's a priority in the budget, like it always is. I mean, rising costs. And then obviously the last thing we talked about too, which was the pancake breakfast, which I hope he has a lot of fun with that. I've personally never been.
I haven't either. I really kind of want to go one of these years. It's just been difficult too.
I know. We did the interview last year, and I really wanted to go.
Yeah, if you check out our website, you'll see a picture, I think, of the two of us holding up spatulas and wearing aprons. So.
Yes. So that was a lot of fun. So, I hope Gonzalez well with that, and hopefully he's up for the task of flipping all those pancakes and doing whatever else he may need.
And like I said, hoping they get some good weather for that too.
Yeah.
We don't want rain on the weekends like we always seem to get nowadays. But
no, exactly. But, thank you guys to the listeners again for joining us. And that will wrap another episode of So That Reminds Me. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.